Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody around the world. So lovely of you to join us today. My name is Michelle Maloney. I'm the co founder and national convener of the Australian Earth Laws Alliance, or AILA, and I'm also delighted to be one of the facilitators of the Asia Pacific Hub of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. And today we're hosting our first webinar for 2026, and we're really excited to be able to hear from Hae-Jin Chong and Taehan Park about rights of nature developments in Korea. But before we do a proper introduction to our guest speakers, I'd also like to introduce the wonderful Gina, who's also part of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature Asia Pacific Hub. She will introduce a bit more about GARN and the Asia Pacific Hub itself, but also just to pause, as an Australian, we often start our meetings acknowledging country. Australia has a colonial history, and I am a non-Indigenous Australian living on the beautiful lands of the Kabi Kabi First Nations peoples. So it's a lovely tradition that recognises that land was never ceded, that honours First Nations peoples, and particularly for the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature and for AILA, recognising, acknowledging and respecting the First Nations peoples all around the world is really important to all of us. So I just want to do that, acknowledge country. And if there are Australians on the call today, there's a bit of a tradition to pop in the chat where you are, where you're from, and whether you're in Australia or anywhere, we'd love you to write in the chat where you are today. There's a little bit of chat about the sound. Just to clarify, the sound is all good. If anyone's experiencing problems, it might be with your own computer sound. Okay, that's enough from me. Delighted to hand over now to Gina to tell us about the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature and our glorious Asia Pacific Hub. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for your nice introduction, also for organizing this amazing webinar with us. And okay, I will start sharing my slide. Can you see the slide? Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Im from South Korea. I'm one of the facilitators at GARN Asia Pacific Hub and also serving as an academic affairs manager at People for Earth in South Korea. Before we start the session, I would like to give you a short introduction to the GARN and also Asia Pacific Hub. For anyone who is not familiar with GARN, it stands for the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, which was founded in 2010 by global leaders who had a key role in advancing the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth in Cochabamba, Bolivia. It's a global network committed to promoting legal systems that treat nature as a fundamental and rights-bearing entity, ensuring that the rights of nature are recognized, respected, and enforced around the world. Within GARN, there are 5 regional hubs, including our Asia Pacific Hub and 4 thematic hubs. GARN also holds the International Rights of Nature Tribunal every year. And our hub was created in 2022 during GARN's global gathering in Siena, Italy, to foster collaboration, outreach, and meaningful dialogue on the rights of nature movement in Asia Pacific region, which is incredibly diverse in language, culture, and ecosystems. Currently, we have members from more than 20 countries across the region, and some of our activities include outreach programs in Nepal and the youth training session in Sri Lanka in 2023, led by our facilitator, Sumapa. And last year, in April in the Philippines, we held our very first in-person gathering with the rights of nature advocates from 9 countries. It was a very meaningful moment because it was the formal launch of the Asia Pacific Hub, where we announced the Mount Peru Declaration, sharing our shared commitment to advancing the rights of nature and also strengthening regional solidarity. We also had a chance to visit the Dumagat indigenous community living near the Sierra Madre Mountain, which is under threat from a large-scale dam project. This visit definitely reminded us of the importance and urgency of our collective work. In 2026, we'll be holding this webinar series bi-monthly until next year, inviting speakers from diverse backgrounds and countries. So please stay connected and join us for upcoming sessions. We are planning to have a hub meeting this March, also a General Assembly later this year, hopefully in person again. This is the end of my short presentation, and thanks again for joining us. And if you would like to become a member of GARN and collaborate with us, you're always welcome. And thank you again. And I'd like to give this floor to Hye-jin Jang. Jang is a lawyer and also a director of Earth Law Center Korea at People for Earth. Hi, Hye-jin Jang.
Thank you so much, Gina. Gina, if you'd like to stop sharing, then Hay can try to share screen. It's a wonderful overview. And yes, please do join us in the Asia Pacific Hub. We've got lots of good things on the bubble.
Thank you.
Welcome, Hye-jin. Are you okay with your slides?
Okay.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, it's truly a pleasure to be here again. Last April, I had the opportunity to introduce the overall discussions of right of nature in South Korea at the Grand Asia Pacific Gathering, which Gina mentioned previously. And I am grateful to continue this conversation with you today. My name is Hye-jin Jung, and I serve as a director of the Earth Jurisprudence Center at People's for Earth Foundation. Okay, and I'd like to introduce our foundation. This foundation was founded in 2015 by Kim Si-gang, who served as a Minister of Justice of the Republic of Korea. It's a non-profit organization composed of members of diverse professional backgrounds, lawyers, professors, artists, scientists, and students. And our goal is to explore new ways of building a better relationship between Earth and human society. Within the foundation, we have two main academic bodies, the Earth Jurisprudence Society and the Earth Jurisprudence Center, which I am a director of this society. It's a kind of a study group. We study Earth-centered legal systems, laws that view Earth as a living community rather than a resource. And the center supports academic research, educational programs, and cooperation with international partners, including United Nations Harmony with Nature Initiative, and of course, GARN. Since 2015, we have organized person lecture series 4 times a year. And then also we have many publications, including Wider Korean translation, which is translated by Professor Park, who will speak later after me. And the Ecology of Law is also translated by Professor Park, and several original Korean publications on Earth law, and which is also a book, another book by Professor Park. So our work combines scholarship, legal education, and public discourse. Last year, September, I introduced the broader situation of right of nature in Korea. Today, I would like to focus more specifically on the recent legislative development, the proposed ecological. Okay, so for the Korean situation in right in nature, it's in Korea, discussions on right of nature is still very limited. We don't have a constitutional recognition, no statute granting right to nature, and there have been no successful case recognizing standing for non-human beings. So compared to countries like Ecuador or New Zealand, Korea is still at the very early stage. However, one meaningful development is the proposal of the eco-legal person system, first in Jeju. So why in Jeju? And you see the map of Korean Peninsula and Japan, and then between of two countries, there's a very, very small island. It's called Jeju Island. Jeju is a special self-governing province. We have a special law which recognizes Jeju as a special self-governing province, not like other local governments. So Jeju has a broader legislative autonomy than other provinces in Korea. Because of that, legally and politically, Jeju has more kind of flexibility to experiment new institutional models. And as you see, Jeju has a volcanic ecosystem, and it has many world natural heritage, and then but there are kind of ongoing tensions between growth and composition, as many other countries and regions. So what's the bill? Let's see the bill. On December 31st, so it's the last day of the 2024, National Assembly member Lee Sung-gon proposed an amendment to Jeju Special Self-Governing Province Act. This bill allows the governor of Jeju to designate ecological legal persons. So the governor of Jeju can designate specific species or ecosystems or natural environment as ecological legal persons. This is a very important movement. It does not automatically grant right to all of nature. Instead, it allows case-by-case designation. And so the designation requires deliberation by the Jeju Provincial Council and approval by 2/3 of its members. So the approval requires quite numbers. And then, so we can say the threshold is intentionally very high. If designated, the ecological legal person would have rights such as the right to habitat protection, the right to request restoration, the right to demand restrictions on harmful development, those kind of rights. But because nature cannot speak for itself, the bill provides for a designated guardian or manager and support committee, including resident experts, NGOs, and officials. And this is the kind of content of the specific special law. And it also includes compensation clause if economic damages occurs due to designation. So overall, this bill is cautious and structured, not radical, but experimental. However, although the bill was formally submitted in 2024, so already we had 1 year more, but there are no substantive discussions in the National Assembly so far. This is partly because to the broader political situation in Korea, and I will return to that later. And now I'd like to introduce kind of the actual candidates. We last year, as I mentioned, I mainly introduced the case of Jeju Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins. The dolphins are endangered and with around 120 individuals remaining. There was a strong public interest, especially after the Korean drama called Extraordinary Attorney Woo. It's a very popular K-drama in Korea. So in November 2023, the governor of Jeju announced the plan to introduce the eco-legal person system. And then, as I mentioned, parliamentary member Wi Sung-gon submitted the bill. And after that, the dolphin became the symbolic first candidate. But there is a political tension because the commercial fishing communities oppose the idea. They worry about fishing restrictions if the bill is enacted. On the other hand, Jeju Haenyeo, who is a traditional women divers in Jeju, they strongly welcome the proposal. This is interesting. The Haenyeo see dolphins as part of the shared marine community. For them, coexistence is not abstracted philosophy, but it is their daily life. And recently, there is another candidate, which is Gotjawal forest. What is Gotjawal? Gotjawal is a unique lava forest ecosystem in Jeju. It has a high diversity and important groundwater functions. And politically, Gotjawal may be seen as less directly connected to commercial industry than dolphins. So some politicians are now suggesting that Gotjawal could be designated first as a more feasible starting point. This shift is a relatively recent one. And although the bill has been submitted, there has been not kind of big progress in committee level deliberation. And this year, in April, Korea will hold local elections. So because the election cycle, it is unlikely that meaningful legislative discussions will happen before the elections. So realistically, it will probably be after the elections. To conclude, in Korea, the right of nature is still not mainstream legal discourse, but Jeju Ecological Legal Person Bill represents the first concrete legislative attempt. It is cautious and politically negotiated, but it opens a door. So whether dolphins or Gotjawal become the first ecological legal person, the deeper question is this. Can Korean law move from a purely human-centered system to a system that recognizes nature as a participant in the legal community? We do not know the answer yet, but the discussion has begun. And this is all of my preparing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now I'd be really pleased to introduce Tae-hoon Park. And Tae-hoon, I know, is a leading thinker and professor in many environmental law issues.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm not very confident in my English, so I have prepared a script and will read through it. I teach environmental law and earth law at Gangwon National University in Korea. Today, I would like to discuss constitutional implication of ecological order and the rights and the nature in the Republic of Korea Constitution. I'm sorry. In this presentation address the limitation of the current constitutional framework of environment rights and proposed a transition toward what may be called an ecological constitution, grounded in the concept of objective ecological order. This is contents. Environmental rights in the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. Function and limitation. Environmental rights were first introduced in the Korean Constitution in 1980 and later revised in 1987 under Article 35. And the right to live a clean environment is revised to live healthy and pleasant environment. Environmental rights serve an important function in protecting the free conditions for life, bodily integrity, and freedom. In August 2024, Constitutional Court of Korea ruled that the government's greenhouse gas reduction target were constitutionally inadequate. Specifically, the absence of reduction target for the period from 2031 to 2049 was found to violate the principle of prohibition of insufficient protection. As a result, the court declared the Framework Act on Carbon Neutrality to be unconstitutional. This is the first successful climate litigation case in Asia. Secondary function serves as ultimate purpose of environmental legislation and policy, and thereby enabling all citizens to enjoy a healthy and pleasant life. This is the ultimate purpose of environmental legislation and policy. Despite this development, environmental rights remain fundamentally limited in nature. First, environmental rights classified as subjective human rights. It means that their enforcement depends upon individualized legal claims. State decision-making in environmental matters typically involve a balancing of interest between development and environmental protection. As such, environmental concerns are often outweighed by economic or policy consideration. Limitation 2. Under the current constitutional framework, development and environmental protection are treated as equal constitutional values. This approach is evident in judicial decisions such as the Saemangam case, which is the reclamation of tidal wetland case, where the court emphasized the need for a balance and rational resolution of conflict between development and environmental protection. In other words, environmental protection is not treated as a constitutional limit, but as one interest among many. Transition to an ecological constitution. Necessity of an ecological constitution. An ecological constitution seeks to move beyond this balancing paradigm. Rather than treating the constitution as a set of rules governing human institutions alone, it situates the legal order within the life-supporting systems of the earth. In such a framework, ecological integrity becomes a core normative value. strategy I propose item on A, specify in the preamble the respect for nature and all living beings. 2, add to the human dignity clause alongside human dignity the principle that all living beings possess intrinsic value and have the right to be respected. 3, add an ecological balanced environment to the environment right clause. And also impose upon the state a priority duty to protect the environment. B, in the economic provisions, declare the pursuit on ecological economy. Recognize the finite regenerative capacity of nature and take into account natural ecological cycles and function. Also provide a basis for regulation or support for transition to an economy less dependent on carbon. In the land provisions, specify that the national territory is prior to being the basis for human life and production, the natural habitat of flora and fauna and a natural ecosystem. Next slide. Constitutional amendment proposed by the National Assembly Advisory Committee transition to an ecological constitution. Preamble. Proposed constitutional amendment may include the right to live in a stable climate, protection from climate disaster, recognition of the rights of future generation, legal protection of animals. This provision reflects a shift toward integrating ecological consideration into constitutional governance. In conclusion, if ecological stability constitutes a precondition for the realization of fundamental rights, then the Constitution must recognize and protect ecological order as a foundational legal principle. The transition toward an ecological constitution is therefore not only desirable but necessary. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Taehan. And may I commend you for giving a talk in a language that is not your first language. I can barely pronounce people's names. As a monolingual Australian, I am extremely in awe and impressed with how wonderful you all are speaking so many languages. So thank you. You have my deep admiration and respect. And in a minute, we'll go to questions. Gina and I have been collecting a few questions, but I've also got a couple of my own. Some messages are visible in the public list and others have come to me. I might actually start with a question for Taehan, if that's okay. If we understand you correctly, you're saying that while South Korea has a right to a clean environment in the Constitution, it doesn't really have a more ecocentric focus or rights for all of nature in the Constitution. Is that correct? Yes. And I actually personally wanted to say Australia has no mention of the environment in our Constitution, let alone a right to a clean environment. For Australians listening, have a look at our Constitution one day. It is very much similar to the way it was designed in 1900 and the way it was released in 1901 as an act. And because it's old and we have trouble bringing new law in, we don't have any rights to anything to do with the environment explicitly listed in our constitutional provisions. Of course, we have a lot of law in Australia, but I guess I just wanted to point that out for our audience, that although Tae-hun rightly points out the South Korean constitution doesn't include rights of nature or intrinsic rights for nature, it's got a lot more going on in the environmental space than Australia does. So, Tae-hun, what would you like to see happen most to change the constitution in South Korea? And do you think the legal personhood bill will help get a change to the constitution as well? Gina, if you want to ask the question differently. Can you hear us? No, we can't.
Yep.
Now we can hear you. Gina, I don't know if the question was clear enough. Maybe you repeat it for me, but it's about what he would like to see first change in the constitution. Yeah?
Okay. 그 헌법에서 뭐를 제일 가장 먼저 바꾸고 또 그 생태법인 법안이 어떻게 또 그런 저희 그 법체계에 도움이 될 수 있을지 더 생태적으로 이렇게 질문하셨는데.
네. 진아님이 좀 트랜스레이션 해주실래요?
네, 한번 해볼게요. I will try to translate, but I'm not sure if I'm good. It was quite early. I don't know if it's right. Just and it was in 80s when there was a military regime, and this right to clean environment, when it was adopted in the constitution, it was kind of decorative, not really substantive.
Okay.
네, 그리고 지금 한국 시민사회가 어쨌든 이 환경권을 실질화하기 위해서 많은 이제 환경운동가들이 노력을 했었고, 그래서 헌법재판소도 장식적 권리가 아니라 실질적인 권리가 되도록 그렇게 적극적으로 헌법 해석을 해왔습니다. 그런데
So there are a lot of environmental activists, and also the courts, they try to make an effort to translate this, how do you say, translate this right to environment as more substantive rights.
지금은 저는 이제 먼저 하나를 꼽으라고 하면은 어떤 특정한 조항을 이렇게 도입을 하는 것보다는 헌법 전문에서 헌법의 전반적인 가치가 좀 너무 인간 중심적이지 않은, 그래서 자연과의 조화 속에서 우리가 살 때 인간이 더 번영을 할 수 있다라고 하는 어떤 헌법 전문에서 그러한 환경 가치를 선언을 하고, 그러한 것들이 이제 우리의 사법 재판 해석에서 또 우리 환경운동의 실천에서 그런 것들이 이제 실천 속에서 좀 해석과 운동을 통해서 실천 속에서 이제 그런 가치들이 좀 구현이 되는 것이 필요하다. 그래서 특정한 어떤 조항보다는 헌법 전문의 그런 자연의 가치가 좀 반영되는 것이 저는 중요하다. 그래서 헌법 전문에서 좀 자연의 가치를 좀 포함을 다시 쓰는 것이 더 중요하다. 그런 생각을 합니다.
How you going, Gina? Can you
It
translate?
was quite long. I don't know
It
if I
was
can
long.
remember everything. Okay, Professor Bach said instead of revising or making new article in the Constitution, instead we better put a new, revise the preamble in the Constitution that have more environmentally friendly sentences, and that we can respect the harmony with nature. Yes, and instead of new articles, we can have our course to interpret this right to clean environments more environmentally friendly and more ecocentric way, in a more ecocentric way. And we can also support the environmental activists. And that was it. Would you like to add more, or would you like to say something more, Miss Jang?
May I? May I?
Yes, please, Hei-jin. I was about to go to you.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. I think Professor Park says that instead of not specific implanting a specific new article is not important. What's important is the constitutional spirit, and he suggests we could implement the spirit into constitutional preamble rather than a new specific article.
Yes.
Wonderful. Could we now move to talk about the legal personhood bill? And Hei-jin, can I ask, how did it all begin? Is this something that started with lawyers, with concerned people from the community? Where did it begin, and do you think it will pass into law?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I think, sorry, it's a kind of urgent schedule came up, so I tried. Sorry about this. And the movement, first NGOs and academics like Professor Bob, he introduced the New Zealand example, and the Ecuador cases, many right of nature case, and then NGOs kind of inspired by the overseas cases, and they talked about, oh, maybe we could bring legal personhood in Jeju. So, and the governor, Jeju governor, was interested in this kind of movement, and he said, because Jeju should be a very ecological island, we may introduce legal personhood. And then the parliament member thought, okay, this can be happen if we change the special law, Jeju self-governing special law. So he kind of introduced that bill, but it's still very, very limited discussions. And the governor, because it's, as I said, there is elections in April. He kind of cautious because he also needs commercial fishing people's vote too. So it's the suggesting the bill is a big thing, I think, in Korea, but still we have many, many ways to go.
No, that's really important. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I didn't hear you correctly. Were you saying that before the bill was drafted and before the bill was introduced, there were cases in Korea, or did you mean people were just looking at rights of nature cases in other places?
Professor Bang, actually, he used to be a lawyer, environmental lawyer, and he tried to kind of have a case as just a moment.
Like a test case?
Yes, it's a real case.
Yeah.
And there was a construction, a highway construction, and then the construction site is the habitat for special, I don't know the English name, special animal.
Korean lizard.
Korean lizard. Oh, yes, lizard. Yeah. And then he kind of, to get the standing of the specific case, he represented the Korean lizard in the case, but of course it's rejected, and then the court said the lizard has no legal rights. So
Yeah,
Professor Park and other lawyers, they kind of did many test cases, but they're not kind of a successful one yet.
that's really interesting. Gina, sorry, were you going to add something?
But I wanted to say that in South Korea right now, the important thing is the public litigation is not allowed yet. And also our environmental groups, they don't have legal standing in South Korea. So if we can really pass the bill on the co-legal personhood, it would be very helpful to support environment in South Korea.
It's very interesting. Australia has fairly broad standing laws across the different jurisdictions, but we don't have a right to a healthy environment or anything like that in our constitution, whereas you have a right to a healthy environment in your constitution, but general standing is limited. Everywhere is different, isn't it? We're going to wrap up in just 3 minutes. There's a couple of questions in here I might just speak to very quickly because people are asking different questions. So one of them is, how did the Whanganui River in New Zealand get rights? So very quickly, this is your 1-minute overview. The rights of nature movement, in terms of a legal movement pushing back at Western law, started in around 2006 in the USA with small local communities working with CELDEF, declaring that they had the right to defend their local places and that their local rights, local nature had rights. Then the Ecuadorian constitution in 2008 was the first constitution to put rights of nature into law. And for a little while, the most action we saw on rights of nature was people looking at bringing rights across an entire jurisdiction. You've asked about the Whanganui River, and it's very important because it bubbled up for many years, but in 2017 became law, and it came from a very different place. It was the First Nations peoples in New Zealand, the Maori iwi, who were working under the Treaty of Waitangi and working through legally allowed compensation agreements. Long story short, through that process, the government decided that they would not be giving the river back, but they would let the river have some of its own legal rights, and it would be managed by guardians. And it's not overstating it to say that created an explosion and a really different branch of the rights of nature tree, where everybody started looking at ecosystem rights rather than rights across a jurisdiction. So the thing to remember in the rights of nature conversation is there's lots of different people exploring this idea in lots of different ways, in lots of different places. There is no one cookie cutter size fits all. You know, in Australia, First Nations law, if some of the Western legal system could be cracked open and actually allow First Nations law to lead, we would have a very different legal system. And as Mary Graham and others would say, not just a rights-based, but really focusing on ecological stewardship and localized bioregional custodianship. Whereas in other countries, you know, we'll be hearing through this beautiful webinar series, people in India, people in the Philippines, and they're all doing different things to try to find in their own system either a return to ancient ways of caring for the living world or new ways of doing a bit of both. So that's my in a nutshell. Thank you. I'm getting good feedback from my in a nutshell explanation. I think I've been giving that same 1-minute overview for about 10 years now. I'm joking. But thank you. I'm glad that was of use, because it's not a magic one bullet answer to everything, but it's an incredibly important way to bring the conversation to Western legal systems that, left alone right now, they just see nature as human property. And that's why people are pushing back against it. We see that a lot of traditional environmental law is failing because our economic growth is just too strong and too mean and too savage. So everyone's looking at different ways. So anyway, enough from me. We'll wrap up in just 2 more minutes. One thing I was wondering is if anyone would like to comment on the dolphin itself. Was it chosen because it's such a, is it iconic in your part of your communities? Is it just cute? Why was it chosen as the first thing? And I'd like to end our conversation on talking about dolphins, because I think that's a good thing to do. Hey, Jin, did you want to start? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think the dolphin issue is before the right of nature issue discussion introduced. The dolphin issue is a very serious one in Jeju Island because of bigger commercial fisheries. It hurts, and there's many environmental NGOs who are interested in dolphins, and then there's a K-drama, and then the dolphin became more and more popular, and then the bill introduced. So, okay, the dolphin is the one, and then everyone loves dolphins, and especially the haenyeo, Jeju haenyeo, women divers, they collecting things from the sea, but they play with the dolphins in the sea. So it's symbolic and practically the best one. If the dolphin became legal personhood, I think it's a really, really wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. And Taehan, did you want to add anything before we start to wrap up? I'll certainly be wishing you all the best with both the bill getting through into law and the changes you want to see in the constitution. But did you have any thoughts on either the dolphins or the success of the bill? And you, yeah.
여기 그러니까 별거로 우리 제주 생태 포럼 그 좀 말씀해 주시고 좀 관심을 가져주셨으면 좋겠다. We are hosting an ecological forum in Jeju. Yeah. We would appreciate your interest. We share further information in due course. Yeah. Thank you.
It's coming in November. Jeju
This
Forum.
November?
Yeah.
Yeah, this November. Yes.
Well, please keep us informed, whether through Gina or through the hub more directly. We would love to keep watching what's going on in South Korea and keep our conversations going. Gina, I'll start to wrap up now so we can finish on time. I'd really like to thank our wonderful speakers today, Hae-Jin Chong and Taehyun Park. And I really want to thank everyone for working across our languages and our different cultures, because one of the challenges we have in the Asia Pacific Hub is so many different peoples, so many different cultures, worldviews. It's really exciting to be learning and sharing together. And I want to thank everyone for your time today. Gina, did you want to finish up and say goodbye? And then, we will ask the speakers to share slides. We will try to ensure that we email out copies of the slides for this talk. And please stay on the AILA and GARN mailing lists to find out more about what everybody's up to. So, but over to you, Gina, to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today and hosting this nice, amazing webinar, Michelle. And for our speakers, I would like to thank you so much. And we will have another webinar in April soon, and we will announce the speakers. So please subscribe and like and follow our SNS pages. We have Instagram and also Facebook, web pages of GARN Asia Pacific Hub, also People for Earth Foundation.
Yeah,
To
wonderful.
see you
Yeah,
again.
thank you so much, everybody. We'll let you go now back to your day or evening or morning. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.